The church bells rang in harmony, echoing across the quiet Sunday morning, announcing what was supposed to be the happiest day of Evelyn Carter's life. The tall stained glass windows shimmered with colors as sunlight poured in, painting the marble floor with splashes of red, blue, and gold. White roses lined the aisles, candles flickered softly, and the sweet fragrance of lilies lingered in the air. Inside the grand cathedral, hundreds of guests sat in anticipation. Friends whispered excitedly, families smiled with pride, and cameras were already clicking as they waited for the moment when Evelyn would walk down the aisle. She stood just outside the heavy oak doors, her heart pounding beneath the layers of lace and silk. Her gown was delicate yet regal, with pearl buttons trailing down her back and a veil that cascaded like a waterfall. Her hands trembled as she clutched her bouquet of ivory roses. This was the day she had dreamed of since childhood. The day she would marry Daniel Whitmore, the charming man who had swept her off her feet 2 years ago with his charisma and promises of forever. Evelyn closed her eyes for a brief moment. This is it, she thought. This is the beginning of the rest of my life. The organ music swelled, and the grand doors creaked open. Gasps filled the cathedral as she appeared, radiant in her white gown, her smile fragile but hopeful. Slowly, she walked down the aisle, her father holding her arm with pride. Guests craned their necks to capture the sight of the bride, their whispers carrying through the air like ripples on water. But as Evelyn lifted her gaze toward the altar, her heart skipped. Daniel wasn't smiling. In fact, he wasn't even looking at her. He stood rigid, his jaw clenched, his eyes darting toward the doors behind him as though searching for an escape. The priest cleared his throat, sensing something odd, but carried on with the ritual. Evelyn's steps faltered slightly, but she forced herself forward, ignoring the sudden unease building inside her. At last, she reached the altar. Her father placed her hand into Daniel's. His palm was cold, too cold. The ceremony began, each word echoing louder than it should have. And then it happened. When the priest asked Daniel to declare his vows, he didn't speak. He swallowed hard, his lips parting, but no sound came out. Murmurs rose among the guests. Evelyn's chest tightened, her fingers gripping the bouquet so tightly that the stems bent. Finally, Daniel spoke. I can't do this. The words hit the cathedral like a thunderclap. Gasps erupted, someone dropped their program, and Evelyn felt her knees weaken beneath her gown. She stared at him, her voice barely a whisper. What do you mean? Daniel's face twisted with guilt. He shook his head, stepping back. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I thought I could, but I can't marry you. The silence that followed was unbearable. Guests shifted uncomfortably, some whispering, some staring in shock. Evelyn's father froze in disbelief. Her mother covered her mouth, tears brimming in her eyes. Evelyn felt as if the ground had been pulled from beneath her. The world blurred, and the laughter, the flowers, the music, all of it turned into a cruel stage for her humiliation. Daniel turned, walked away from the altar, and headed toward the grand doors. His footsteps echoed like a betrayal etched in sound. And then, he was gone. Evelyn stood frozen in place, abandoned at the altar, her heart shattered into 1,000 unfixable pieces. Her bouquet slipped from her trembling hands and scattered petals across the marble floor. The whispers grew louder. Poor girl. He left her here, in front of everyone, what a disgrace. Her vision blurred with tears, her throat tightening as though a noose had been tied around it. She wanted to scream, to run, to hide, but her legs refused to move. It was then, amid the silence and shame, that another presence stirred. From the second pew, a man rose. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a black tailored suit that fit him like it had been sewn into his very skin. His hair was dark, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, piercing, steel-gray eyes, were fixed on Evelyn. The guests noticed him immediately. Murmurs shifted, now directed at the stranger who exuded wealth and quiet power. Some recognized him instantly. Alexander Grayson, the reclusive millionaire whose name was whispered in boardrooms and headlines but who rarely appeared in public. He stepped forward, unhurried, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. He walked past the rows of stunned guests until he reached the altar, stopping just inches from Evelyn. Her breath caught. She had never seen him before, but his presence was overwhelming, like gravity pulling her in. He leaned slightly closer, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Evelyn, he murmured, his tone calm, steady, almost dangerous in its certainty. You deserve better than this. She blinked through her tears, confused, lost. Her lips parted but no words came. Then, with a confidence that silenced even the murmurs of the crowd, he whispered the words that would change everything. Will you be my wife instead? The cathedral froze. Evelyn's heart stopped. For a moment, she thought she had misheard him. But his eyes held hers, unwavering, daring her to answer. Her world, already shattered, tilted into chaos once more. The church seemed to stop breathing. Alexander Grayson's words lingered in the air, heavier than the scent of roses and candle wax. Guests froze, caught between shock and disbelief. Evelyn's mind spun. Did he really just ask me that? Here, in front of everyone, with my world falling apart. Her lips trembled. I don't understand, she whispered, struggling to gather the pieces of herself left scattered on the marble floor. Alexander's gaze didn't waver. His voice remained low, private, yet firm. You don't need to. Not yet. All you need to know is that I won't let you walk away from this altar broken. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Moments ago, she had been humiliated beyond repair. Now, this stranger, this enigmatic millionaire, was offering her a lifeline, though she couldn't tell if it was salvation or something darker. Gasps and murmurs swept through the pews like wildfire. He's proposing. Alexander Grayson, the billionaire. Here. What kind of madness is this? Her father stepped forward, his voice sharp. Sir, this is highly inappropriate. My daughter is in shock. She doesn't know what she's saying, or what you're asking. But Alexander's eyes never left Evelyn's. It's her choice, he said quietly. Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes. She had dreamed of a perfect wedding day, and instead, she was living inside a scandal. Her mind screamed, say no, run away, escape this nightmare. But another voice whispered, what do you have to lose? He already left you. Your life will never be the same after today. Her throat tightened. Why? Why me? She managed to ask, her voice breaking. For the first time, Alexander's expression softened. Because I know what it feels like to be left standing alone. The words hit her like a hidden truth, heavy with something he wasn't saying. His gray eyes flickered with a pain she didn't understand. Before she could respond, the whispers of the crowd rose to chaos. Someone snapped a photo, flashes went off, and suddenly it wasn't just a ruined wedding, it was a spectacle. Evelyn felt suffocated. I can't. Not here, she whispered. Alexander nodded once, reading her distress. Without another word, he reached out and gently took her trembling hand. Then come with me. And before anyone could stop them, Alexander led her down the steps of the altar, past rows of stunned guests, through the grand cathedral doors, and into the blinding sunlight outside. The limousine waiting at the curb was sleek, black, and unmistakably his. Evelyn stumbled inside, her gown spilling across the leather seats. The door shut, and the chaos of whispers and flashing cameras was left behind. Silence filled the car, heavy and fragile. Evelyn stared out the window, her reflection fractured in the glass. Do you always rescue abandoned brides? She asked bitterly. Alexander didn't flinch. No, just this one. Her laugh was shaky, broken. You don't even know me. He turned his head, his gaze piercing. I know enough. I know you deserve better than a man who would humiliate you on your wedding day. Her chest ached, the betrayal still raw. Better. You mean you. A stranger who thinks he can just replace him. Something flickered across his face, a shadow of hurt, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. Not replace, he said quietly. Protect. That word unsettled her more than anything. Protect. From what? The limousine glided through the city until it stopped before an opulent mansion perched on the edge of the hills. Its gates swung open at Alexander's command, and Evelyn felt a wave of intimidation crash over her. She had stepped into a world she didn't belong to. Inside, the mansion was vast, glass walls, marble floors, priceless art. But it was cold, almost too pristine, like no one truly lived there. Alexander poured her a glass of water and set it before her. His movements were controlled, almost calculated. You're wondering why I did it, he said, breaking the silence. She looked up, her voice sharp. Yes. Why humiliate me further? Why make me a scandal? His jaw tightened. Because I couldn't watch you walk out of that church and be torn apart by gossip, pity, and shame. You deserved someone to stand beside you. And if no one else would, then I would. His words carried weight, but Evelyn's distrust lingered. That's noble, she said bitterly. But people like you don't do things out of kindness. What do you really want from me? He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. I want you to marry me. Her heart lurched. You can't be serious. I am. Her breath caught. Why? This time, the mask slipped. Pain flickered across his features, raw and unguarded. Because I lost her, he whispered. Years ago, at the altar, just like you today, and I swore that if I ever had the chance to stop it from happening to someone else, I would. The silence that followed was suffocating. Evelyn stared at him, realizing the weight of his past, the scars he carried. He wasn't offering her a fairy tale. He was offering her a pact between two broken souls. Her tears slipped down her cheeks. You don't even know if I could ever love you. Alexander's expression hardened, though his voice remained steady. Then don't love me. Just let me stand beside you. Let me give you the life he couldn't. Days turned into weeks. The media spun the scandal endlessly. Bride abandoned, rescued by mysterious billionaire. Evelyn's name was everywhere. Her humiliation transformed into curiosity, even envy. Some called her foolish, others called her lucky. But the world no longer pitied her. Inside Alexander's mansion, life was different. He treated her with a respect that Daniel never had. He never pressed her for affection, never demanded her trust. He simply kept his promise. He stood beside her. And yet, the walls around him never fully lowered. Late at night, Evelyn would hear him pacing the halls, his footsteps. Restless, haunted, she wondered if his ghosts would always stand between them. One evening, as rain lashed against the glass walls, Evelyn confronted him. Why do you hide behind this emptiness? She asked, her voice trembling with courage. You saved me, but who will save you? His gaze softened, and for the first time, he let his guard fall completely. Maybe you, he whispered. Her heart clenched. For weeks she had fought against him, against the absurdity of what he had asked. But now, looking into his eyes, she realized something terrifying. She wanted to try. Months later, the world gathered again in another grand cathedral. Cameras lined the streets, the public desperate to see if it was real this time. Evelyn stood once more in a white gown, but this time, her heart wasn't trembling with fear. Alexander stood at the altar, waiting, not rigid with doubt, but steady, sure. When she reached him, she whispered, Are you sure? He smiled faintly, his voice low enough for her alone. I've never been more certain. And as the vows were spoken, Evelyn realized the truth. She hadn't just been rescued. She had been given a second chance, at love, at strength, at life itself. The man who once whispered a shocking proposal at the lowest moment of her life was now the man who had rebuilt her from the ashes. And when she said I do, the cathedral erupted in applause, not out of pity, but out of awe.